Welcome out to episode number 25, version 2.0 of these. I think we can officially stop saying that. Welcome to episode 25 of the Screaming Boy podcast. We are excited to be here. We are off and on right now, but that's just, because of the season and everything. But we are still putting out that content for your ear holes. I completely grossed myself out.
That's pretty nasty.
It's the 25th anniversary. It's the 25th. It's the Silver podcast.
It's the Silver podcast. If we put one podcast out per year, one, we started way ahead of the game, and two, that's sad. But anyway, if it's just one per year, but it is the silver anniversary of the Screaming Boy podcast. And tonight, as always, is a fun night, a special night. We have with us, of course, as always, Adam Runyon.
Hello.
And we also have, of course, Jesse Starcher.
Good evening, gentlemen.
And then we have the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Josh Calandros.
Duval.
And I am Ronnie Adams, who has nothing funny to say right now, because I can't beat somebody just chiming in Duval.
You mean you don't have a catchphrase? You need a catchphrase, Ronnie.
It's usually "Stop it, Adam."
No, it's not.
You can just steal one from somewhere. I stole mine from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's clobbering time.
There you go.
That's actually pretty good. I was gonna say you should do something like completely awkward, like Santa Claus is coming to town,
and you should continue it for months. like in June, you should do that.
Yes.
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is Ronnie Adams telling you Santa Claus is coming to town. It's July, Ronnie.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's Halloween. I don't understand.
Or stay golden, Pony Boy.
Sure.
That was awkward. Tonight on tap, we've got a phenomenon that a phenomenon. Well, it is kind of. I was out of the loop for a long time, even though I had television service, but I didn't really watch a whole lot of TV. But I've recently, since getting rid of TV, I have been watching a lot of television shows. I switched from DirecTV to their streaming service, DirecTV Now. And so I've been keeping up with some shows. So we are doing a television show for you tonight. We are not just touching on just TV. We're going to Hulu, Netflix, all kinds of stuff. We're bringing you what we consider the best TV that is on now. So we've got all kinds of shows to choose from here recently. It seems that these originals on the streaming networks, such as Hulu, what's the other one that they talked about bringing a few Marvel shows to?
You're talking about Disney?
No, but
Freeform.
Freeform.
Oh, okay.
Freeform. Netflix is the OG of the streaming networks, and then of course you've got a few others like Crackle, and Disney's going to be coming out with their streaming service pretty soon, which all the Marvel movies and all that are going to that. So we've got some really good stuff coming up for you. One of the most recent Marvel releases has actually they skipped over Netflix, which really surprised a lot of people, and they went to Hulu, and Hulu has released several exclusives to Hulu exclusive shows. I think Mark mentioned Harlots, which. Yeah, Mark Radulitz.
If I remember correctly.
I think you did edit that whole thing out of your show. Man, that was just wrong.
We had a great grotesque rundown of what Harlots was all about.
Mark had a grotesque rundown. I had nothing to do with that. But I think that's one of the ones they started with, and they went into. I've been watching an exclusive on there called Freakish. It's about this small town where a chemical plant explodes and turns everybody into kind of like zombie creatures, but they're not. It's not your typical zombie show, but these kids who are in detention in their high school are some of the only survivors. So it's not bad. We've got several different exclusives, but the one we are talking about, and Josh is going to bring you some stuff about tonight, is a Marvel property, and it was one of my favorite runs of comic book. Just like several different volumes and runs. It's called Runaways. So we're just going to I'm just going to hand the reins over to Josh Calandros and let him run away with Runaways.
Oh my God! We'll never have a better segue.
Yeah, really. You couldn't have written it better, Ronnie.
And good night, folks.
A wrap. Well, so my thought was just that starting out, we can kind of just kick it around with each of our respective perspectives on Runaways the comic, because I mean the biggest storm with each of these new movies and each of these new comic book TV shows is us comic book nerds getting upset about if it's accurate or not to the original source material. So I'm kind of the opinion that it doesn't have to be the exact same as the first storyline from each thing, but a lot of it has to draw from that. I think that's you're gonna draw in new people. You're gonna kind of surprise the old comic book nerds and whatnot. So Ronnie, what's your perspective on the Runaways comic book, the history, the characters, etc.?
Perspective as in what I think about it, or
well, what experience have you had with? Have you read the books?
I've read them all multiple times, and I absolutely love Runaways as a story. From start to finish. The newer Runaways that they did for Civil War, I'm not a big fan of. The newest Runaways is picking up where the first one left off, and I'm a fan of it. But I love Runaways. Love it.
Awesome. So yeah, you've got a pretty similar experience of mine. I haven't read the original run through completion. I think there's 4 huge trade paperbacks that collect everything, and I've read the first 3. And I'm right on board with you. Like, I love all of it, and I was also the exact same on.
Will leave you wanting because they had to cancel it in the middle of a run.
Oh wow!
Really?
Yeah. So it's like storyline. Yeah, where to go? Kind of a deal.
Awesome. Well, that's good to know, though. I mean, I would like to have that and read it, but I don't. I mean, if it's not finished, why bother? I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Well, so, that's where the new one comes in.
Okay. Well,
also, it picks up.
There's only like a 12-year lapse. Because the whole that Battle World story was really bad, but I think that's more just because Battle Worlds those were all pretty bad. But not to get off on a general comic book tangent. But that's good. So you're pretty well exposed to the history, the story, the characters, etc. Adam, what do you know anything about the comic book? Do you know anything about the character?
Just what you guys have mentioned. It's on my list of things to read/watch, but I haven't. I don't know what you guys have told me.
Well, that's perfect, though. I think it's good that some of us have and some of us haven't, just as general talking points. So,
right,
Jesse, what about you?
I think that my first exposure to Runaways was I went to the library and I just found. I don't know if it was a digest size or if it was trade paperback size, but it was of like it had to have been one of the later volumes, because I know what we covered on source material just recently, which was the first volume, was not what I read. So I kind of jumped in like in the middle, and I remember reading it and going, "Oh, this is not a bad book at all." Then, of course, on source material, we had a chance to go back with Ronnie and Mark and read the whole first volume, which was what was that, Ronnie? 18 issues?
Yes.
It was the most issues we'd ever done on source material.
Yep.
And yeah, we got to read those first 18. And I'll tell you right now, if it represents what represents in the comic possibly going to the small screen, ladies and gentlemen, don't listen to my podcast if you're watching the show, because there could be very, very large spoilers ahead if that's the case. But yeah, the comic books themselves, Brian K. Vaughan. I mean, the guy is he's fun to read, and that's who we got right here with Runaways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's okay. So, for some reason, I completely blanked. Have the wiki in front of me, couldn't find it. But I was like, yeah. So Brian K. Vaughan, a great, talented writer of comics, has a lot of stuff under his belt, and this was his early stuff in Marvel. If not, I don't know if it was his first Marvel book or not. But again, I was excited to read it because I'm a fan of Vaughan myself. So, I haven't read any of the later stuff like you guys have, so I don't know exactly what's going on recently past Volume 1. I can't even remember what I read in the volumes that I got from the library, but that's kind of where I was at. Had no idea what we were getting into when the show was coming along, so I turn it back over to you, Calanders.
Yeah, no, I think I'll just, with regards to the comic piece, I'll echo what Ronnie says, and I'll just kind of leave it out there that if you like the older stuff and you haven't read this newer run that started, like you really should. Like it's starting off really well, and it's really intriguing, and it's kind of a continuation of a story that I haven't read, that didn't get to finish up, but I knew what happened in that storyline, so it's really good. So So I'm just going to start out and kind of just introduce some of our key characters in the show here. I'm not going to introduce every single one of them, but just kind of our core group, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So the show has basically kind of set up Alex Wilder as our primary central character here. And really interestingly, as the 5 episodes have gone on, probably our most bland one, really. I mean, there's really not a lot going on with Alex as compared to the other characters, you know. But he's kind of setting up as kind of our central focal point to tie some things together. So there's Alex Wilder. There's Nico Minoru, who's kind of got this goth look going on.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very, very much a brooding teenager for reasons that we'll get into a little bit later. We've got Carolina Dean, who is kind of in this church group that is kind of alluded to as a little bit cultish, but seems to kind of have some okay intentions, at least on the surface. We've got Gertrude. Is it pronounced in the show? Is it Yorkies?
Yes.
Okay, because I always read it as Yorkies, and I was thinking that's probably wrong. But I recall having heard it once or twice and feeling really good about it.
I went the whole Runaways podcast calling her Carolina.
You did.
I even said, watch what happens when Hulu releases the episodes, and it's Carolina. So mispronunciations are clearly.
I always read that as Carolina, and then her name has been mentioned, pretty regularly throughout the show, and I remembered it Carolina, but the Yorkies family name has only been mentioned like twice, so I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
I totally read that as Carolina in the books as well. So Gertrude Yorkies goes by Gert. She's kind of like this very, very strong kind of feminist, almost stereotypical California social justice warrior type. We've got Chase Stein, who at the beginning of the show comes off as this just very stereotypical dumb jock and maybe has some pretty solid potential in class and intelligence, but it's kind of left hanging. You're not really sure if he's just a dumb jock or if he's just not trying. We've got Molly Hernandez, who is probably the youngest one of this particular group. All these kids are kind of about the same age. It seems like they're kind of midway through high school, and Molly's maybe like a true freshman. She has been orphaned at one point, and Gertrude's parents have adopted her, and she's basically kind of Gert's little adopted sister. And that's our core group. We've got a lot of other characters in the show, most of which are just each respective individual character's parents, and that will be very important for reasons we'll get into a little bit later. really, that's pretty much the entirety of the show. There's a couple of external characters that make themselves known and are a little bit more important later. But to get into the first episode, it's kind of your classic first episode. It establishes the characters, the connections between them. The cast that I'd mentioned earlier are at a younger age through their parents' fundraising nonprofit type organization, which is called The Pride. And we ultimately find out that this young group of friends, their connection was kind of broken by the death of Nico's big sister. And her death occurred apparently exactly 2 years before the first episode that we jump into. Aside from just general character development aspects and getting a feel for who these kids are, the primary storyline ends with a runaway girl named Destiny. She's saved from some apparent muggers by the Church of Gaborim, which we ultimately find out is the church that Carolina and her parents are leading and in. Destiny is seen later in the episode at a church group, so she's kind of been she's all in on the faith. And so the episode ultimately ends with the primary characters stumbling upon a ceremony that their parents' group, the Pride, are having, and it's very cultish. There's robes, there's darkness, there's weirdness going on, and it's happening in Alex's family's sub-basement area, and they see their parents basically sacrifice Destiny, and the parents are shocked when Molly takes a picture with her camera phone and it sets off a flash. And that's literally where the first episode ends off. And as far as just kind of a connection to that first storyline in the comic books, this first episode is pretty much like scene for scene, just about perfect, with the exception of the fact that Nico's has had an older sister, and she is dead 2 years ago. Before this, that did not happen in the comic books, as I remember. Everything else, though, is pretty much exactly the way that you wanted it to. And in my opinion, all the kids that play these respective characters, what I came away from after reading the comic books a few years ago, like, they're all pretty much perfect. Mm-hmm. Like, I think they're all really, really good at a straight up scene by scene, panel by panel translation, attitude, personality, etc.
Yeah.
So what, Ronnie, I'll start out with you. What was your perspective after the first episode, given that you had read a lot of the comics and what you knew about the characters and what you expected going into it?
I didn't know what to expect. I've learned not to expect exactly what I want by watching, some of the Netflix Marvel series, because they are going to change stuff. I mean, that's just how it works. I mean, they can't put everything from the comic books on, it doesn't translate well to the screen. Mm-hmm. I did not expect the cast to be as perfect as they are. I mean, it's insane how, their looks, their attitudes, the characterization, the whole nine. It's crazy how good they are.
Yeah.
The switch from Carolina's parents being actors to being church leaders is definitely different. I mean, that was kind of out of left field for me. And then, I mean, but it's still cool because it's fitting in with what they want to do with the show.
Right, and also later in the episodes, we find out that her dad was a huge actor as well. Yeah. So there's still a light connection there as well.
Yeah, and that he's not faring so well in the parts right now because he is a part of this church.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Molly being orphaned because her parents in the comic books, Molly is a mutant and her parents are mutants who are a telepath, telekinetic, those mental powers. But they can't use the word mutant.
Nope. Can't do that.
In the Marvel Cinematic Universe because it is trademarked, but they not yet. They soon might be able to use that because Fox and Marvel are working out a deal, Fox and Disney.
So just to dovetail on that real quick, I will say the only thing, I mean, obviously I'm pumped about the potential movie and TV shows coming together and making it what it should have been from the beginning. But like I think if none of the movie and TV stuff actually comes together, which it almost certainly would, I don't care. I just want a Fantastic Four book. Honestly, this $1 trillion mega merger that will further monopolize our entertainment industry is problematic in some ways, but honestly, I don't care. I just want a Fantastic Four book.
They can finally put out a comic book.
Yeah, I'm really basic on this. Just give me the four together. I love that Chip Zdarsky's writing a buddy book with
Human Torch and
and
Spider-Man.
Ben.
Ben, that's right.
I'm pumped about that, but it's not enough. So anyway, go on.
But there are in the first episode there were a lot of minor changes, which I could totally deal with, and so it kind of blew away my expectations as far as holy crap! I hope they don't change everything, So it was definitely it definitely exceeded the first episode exceeded my expectations as far as setting everyone up. And Nico's big sister, that's weird too, but because she didn't have a sister in the books. But whatever, I don't care. It's no reason was given for them not liking each other in the books other than age. So this makes it a lot better. This gives them a reason not to talk. The end.
I think in a lot of ways the TV show was a lot more cohesive of an introduction to these characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a lot more background and context given for certain things, and the Nico's sister dying thing was unexpected, but it also provides a reason and context for certain things in their attitudes towards each other.
Yeah, exactly. No, there was no reason of them not liking each other, other than they kind of outgrew each other and moved on.
In the comics, you just assume that they were all just kind of
high school
teenagers
politics,
angry about stuff.
High school politics, and that was it. I hate to say politics, but it's the truth. It was one of those things where
clique mentality.
Exactly. And they needed something deeper to drive that wedge further, which makes your emotional what's the word I'm looking for? Emotional attachment to these characters a little greater because, like you said, they're just crappy teenagers that have bad attitudes.
Yeah.
But in this, there's actual emotional reasons for them not liking each other or not talking or being awkward around each other. Being part of high school, further expounds on that, but it's also gives it a little more depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the first episode was really strong in that regard, and for those exact reasons. And I should have said this before we kind of jumped into the whole Runaways piece, but at the time that we're talking about this, there are 5 episodes out. So if people are listening to this weeks or months later or whatnot, that's why we kind of cut off at
episode 5.
That's all that we have right now. Yeah,
they released 3 episodes, and then they went weekly after that, which is weird.
Yeah, and I would like to say I hate that. I think I've become just too used to this whole Netflix Hulu world that we live in. Like the entire season comes out all at once, and so
I'm spoiled rotten with.
I know, dude.
Yeah. So
I'm not used to getting back into the mindset of like a new episode every week. Like tune in same time next week.
It's killing me with a couple of shows that I'm watching. Runaways, and then I'm watching The Orville.
Yeah, I'm also watching The Orville on Hulu, but that's basically on Fox, right? On cable, and it's a weekly thing.
It's a weekly thing. Watching The Orville, and I'm watching Superstore, and I'm all caught up and on everything, and I'm like, when's the next one coming out?
But that's isn't Superstore on? Is that on like a network?
NBC.
It's on NBC. Yeah.
So that's interesting, though. I would be really. I mean, I haven't really read up on it very much. I would be interested to know what Marvel's thought process was behind this, because this isn't originally airing on a network or anything like the Orville or Superstore is, which kind of has to stick with that. But
right.
They gave us all 3 at once, but then it's like 1 a week thereafter, which is
it's like a drug dealer.
Really
they give you a little taste for free, and then you have to work for it.
But that's the thing, you already pay for the service. You're going to have it either way. So
don't make me wait. Ronnie, I want to know, do you have the commercial free, or do you?
I do the $10 or whatever it is.
Do they have commercials during the Runaways show?
Yes, and if I see Matthew McConaughey carry that bottle of wild turkey around one more time.
I love that ad because he's walking through the streets with a full handle of wild turkey.
Right.
Like he's passing people, and like the ladies are all giving him looks like, oh, what a sexy guy. But in reality, they just be like, what the hell is your problem? Like, this wino this is not. This is irregular.
No bag around it, nothing. Just
That's clearly an open container, sir. You're under
arrest. But isn't he wearing like a tuxedo or a suit or something? I mean, doesn't it make it all better?
Which for me raises even more questions, to be honest. Like, I mean, if you're that well-to-do, why are you just rolling the dice?
Whatever. He's just bored.
So
he's a bored millionaire.
So, Jesse, what were your thoughts on kind of the first episode compared to what you read in the books and what you expected coming into the show?
Sure.
If you expected anything?
Yeah, I had the luxury of actually being able to read the books. What was it, Ronnie? Like within a week before the show dropped. So, I was all excited because the books went over really well for me. And they went over really well for Mark, too. He was very pleased with the fact that he was able to read that. And I was like, yeah, dude, this is a great story.
It's really good. Yeah, it's a great story.
It's a good story. And 2, we have read so many world-ending, horrible storylines.
Crash events.
Yeah, just like, the whole Dark Side War, where everything's going to destroy everything else, and
oh man,
Dark Side fought a building or something. I don't know, but
fought a building.
But yeah, we got it. I sat down for this, and we saw the promos for it. The characters look great. I can't do much but just kind of repeat what Ronnie already said. But I'll tell you the biggest thing that I really like about this show is the fact that it's something I can sit down and watch with my soon-to-be teenage daughter. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is something that she's into shows like Pretty Little Liars, Riverdale, kind of that teen drama stuff that you usually will find on the CW or whatever. So I said, "Why don't you sit down?"
Those shows.
No. I mean, I'll watch. I just caught up on Riverdale today. I watched like 4 or 5 episodes over the weekend. But yeah, to sit down with my daughter, and I was like, "You want to check this out? You want to watch it? Because I think you might enjoy it." And she was hooked, to the point where she doesn't even want us talking during the episode, so she can make sure she doesn't miss anything.
Well, that's a really good point too, though, because the first 2 or 3 episodes, really, there is really very, very little like superhero aspect, and really the first 1, 2, 3 episodes really feel more like a teen drama or like almost like a teen mystery type aspect to it, and you don't really get it much superpower or kind of weird Marvel-y type things until episode 4, but really episode 5 when they kind of team up finally. But yeah, no, that's interesting because I want to say that was probably intentional. I don't know that for sure, but I think if it was, that's genius.
Yeah,
because none of their TV shows have really sought out to garner kind of a younger audience yet, which is historically before the movies exploded, kind of way comics were looked at to begin. Oh, that's just kids stuff.
And the way that they have fleshed out these families throughout the series, and the first episode we kind of get, just like you said, beat for beat, kind of what happens in the beginning of the comic. But as we progress, each one of these families seem to be fleshed out way more than I was expecting, and way more than what you get in the book itself. Which is great in my opinion. I think that's awesome. It's probably really tough to adapt a comic book to the small screen and translate it into something that people are going to enjoy. There are plenty of comic book related shows out there. So you've got to find now a place amongst all those shows and do it well in order to keep people watching. Mm-hmm. So I think they did a great, it was a great first episode to get people hooked.
Yeah, I think I was surprised that with the comic books, without giving any of that away, in the comic books from the straight beginning, you understand what their parents are. Yeah. Right. And even 5 episodes in, there's a lot of ambiguity, and there's a lot of like sympathy moments even for some of their parents that you definitely didn't even get a shred of in the comic. So it's an interesting take. That
Gertrude's family, her parents are more sympathetic characters in this. In the show, you feel bad for them because they are actually good people,
right?
But they're caught up in this horrible cult or whatever you want to call the Pride.
Well, whatever we find out the TV show version of the Pride to be, we still don't really know what
they are.
On. Like, there's some hints, but
because in the comic book they were they were like the Legion of Doom. They were just supervillains that got together and said, "Hey, we're more powerful." But you find out there was more to it later on. But but in this one, there's like Jesse said, they're more fleshed out. There's more personality to these families, and which is good. Now, sometimes I feel that they focus too much on the adults in this and not enough on the teenagers.
I think I'm beginning to realize that there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
and I think I might know why, but
I think there's going to be significant differences between with regards to the dynamic between the kids and the parents in the TV show than we ever got in the comic book. I think there's going to be something considerable, and it's going to be particularly drastically different from the comic books.
Yeah,
but I have no way to, obviously no way to know that just yet. But.
So it seems that they're doing more of a justice to the characterizations in the show than they did in the comic books. I hate to say that, but in the books, I mean, you have a longer time to get to know these characters. You have a longer, you have how many volumes were there? 4. Yeah, you said 4. Yeah, 4. So you get to know these characters more and more. There's only so many episodes that you have in a season before you get to, so you can get to know who each one of them are. And it's pretty cool to get to know their parents as well. So, okay, I'll shut up.
I agree. I completely agree. One last point before I kind of go on with the last 4 episodes that we have is that I think the timing for this in the grand scheme of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is really well done, because this is really the first time we get a West Coast, Pacific, California type frame of reference in this cinematic world, because the Avengers stuff, anytime they've mentioned anything, it's pretty much New York City and Washington, D.C. for various reasons that are obvious, particularly with the Captain America movies. But I think this could stand to really kind of branch the universe out and kind of flesh things out in a much better way. And just from a personal standpoint, I just hope it leads to a West Coast Avengers show. But that's we'll touch on that a little bit later. So the episodes 2 through 5, I'm just going to kind of give a few quick bullet point type things about them. I'm going to not even really talk to everything, but just kind of some of the high points. But once we start with episode 2, it's actually a pretty interesting viewpoint this episode presents, really, because it's basically mostly a retelling of episode 1, but it's mostly from the point of view from the Pride, our main character's parents, which is first strong divergence from the comic books, because we never really got a lot of viewpoint or relatability with the Pride. But it paints most of the members of the Pride as somewhat reluctant participants in whatever seedy weirdness we kind of were applied with in the first episode. And as a viewer, you're almost feeling sympathy for a lot of them. But we find out that ultimately you find out that the sacrifice of destiny actually failed, and that Chase's dad, Victor, his pod device that they
Yeah.
dropped into somehow malfunctioned. He's seething about it. He's definitely got some anger issues that he needs to deal with.
He's kind of a piece of crap. I mean, he was in the comic books too, but
he's got a really weird character development flow so far, because the first 2 or 3 episodes, you're like, this guy's just terrible. And then episode 5, you're like, maybe he's just got like, maybe he's, I mean, honestly, just kind of bipolar, because like you actually really like the way he's relating with Chase in episode 5. But
this is played by James Marsters, right?
Yes. Spike from Buffy.
Yeah, so Ronnie texted me about that a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I don't know who that is. And you're like, he's from Buffy. And I was like, I've never seen Buffy. So, like, I looked him up, and I was like, yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff, and I've seen none of it. So, like, he's done a lot of, like, high-level stuff that's really popular with millions and millions of people. I just not happened to jump onto any one of them just yet. But, yeah, there's a lot of, like, pretty good little act. Like, we didn't really talk about the cast specifically, the actors and whatnot, but pretty much every single one of the kids, the primary kids, they all have like 2 or 3 acting credits before this.
They're fairly new.
Like Chase. Yeah. The kid that plays Chase has done a lot, but nothing of particular note. But like most of the other kids have pretty much done like 2 or 3 or 4 different roles and something else for 1 to 4 episodes each.
Yeah, Kira recognized Gert. She was on some type of a Disney show. She was like, oh, who was that? And then, of course, she had me looking up cast. Dude, seriously, if you go to the guy who plays hold on. The main character that we're following here.
Alex.
Thank you. The guy who plays Alex, if you go to his, like, I think it's either IMDb or I can't recall, but it seriously is a baby picture.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's funny.
I was like, who is this kid? Why is this? And then I realized, oh, that's Alex. So, it's interesting. There's not too many faces in the main Runaways that you're going to recognize right off the bat.
Yeah, I think that's good though. It gives all of us kind of established older comic book nerds, like I don't want to have a preconceived notion about what they did before. You know, that's the way. That's actually pretty key to these characters and their overall storyline, the way the comics developed anyway. But by the time we get to episode 3, really the biggest impact of this episode, if I'm not mistaken, it's in this episode, is the introduction of a character that I assume we'll find out is named Old Lace, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But basically, Gert and Molly stumble upon some weird creature in their parents' basement, and the creature is actually a dinosaur that Gert will find a lot more out about, I think, in episode 4. We also get a pretty important character development piece in this episode for Nico, who steals the staff mother carry around at the Pride's attempted thing. Nico finds out magical staff, and she accidentally causes it to snow in her parents' office with the power of the staff. But ultimately, at the end of the episode, we really see on the local news, I think that's this episode, that Destiny's body, Destiny, the failed sacrifice from episode 1 and 2, her body has washed up on a local beach. And so I now know that the sacrifice failed, and there are a couple things that make it clear that Chase's dad, Victor, killed her himself and kind of dumped the body. We kind of leave that episode with various members of the Pride being really concerned, because there's clearly some weird seediness going on that only they know about, and now that stands to crumble. And then episode 4 kind of starts out with a flashback moment. And it goes back to 2 years ago, where Nico discovers her sister's body in her sister's room. Her body is cold. She's in bed, and there's a bottle of empty pills on her nightstand. It's pretty clearly implied that her sister committed suicide. Reveals that her skin has like a rainbow glow. She reveals this to Chase. She initially thought that was just from some drug incident in episode 1 that she may have in her what she thought was a drug-addled days. Episode 4, that Gert and Molly discovered finds its way back It had kind of been on the run, and their parents were trying to find it because they don't want it to be found out because it's a dinosaur in LA. Basically, at the end of the episode, like
we also
Molly
found
comes
that
back into the house. Yep,
Molly is has super strength.
Yeah, and that was in episode 1. There's a lot that goes on. There's a lot of different pieces that are kind of hints to what these kids are all about. Molly has super strength. Her eyes have this weird flicker to them when it happens. She gets really strong, unexpectedly to her, because it's news for her. And then that particular moment of strength is over with. She pretty much immediately falls asleep. It really wears her out. It's funny.
In the end, it's so worthless because you're like, oh, I just lifted this bus. I'm going to take a nap.
Right on the concrete floor, yeah. It was, Her value in long battles will not be very high. Yeah. Really cool thing about this episode, at the very end, Molly is freaked out by the dinosaur. She realizes she's going to just have to fight it, and so her eyes have that flicker. You know, she's going to punch it and probably kill it because she's crazy strong. And right before she does, Gert bursts in and yells, "Stop!" And they both stop because the dinosaur stopped. And tells the dinosaur a few things, and it follows every single command she gives it. And the cutest thing so far for me is like how happy Gert gets. She's like that character is not like, she's a very sarcastic teen
she's not real sympathetic.
Right. Yeah, she's not a negative person, but there's not a lot of like outward moments of joy that she reflects until here, and it's a really neat moment. But for the primary storyline, the episode actually, this episode ends with Nico freaking out about the fact that she basically just watched Alex get kidnapped by, it's not really shown to us. So that kind of brings us to the last episode that is available for us right now. All the kids band together to find out what the hell happened to Alex. This is when the show really starts to feel like a comic book team up, because the kids all come together with their newfound powers or skills or information. There's a lot going on in this episode that I'm not going to touch on. This episode is almost kind of the one that's a little bumpier for me personally, in my opinion, because it's almost hard to follow all the stuff that goes on here. I mean, just to touch on a few, we get Alex's dad's backstory from when he was in prison with another gang member. We find out that same gang member is who was responsible for kidnapping Alex. And his dad team up on some weird design that Chase has, which is an awesome throwback to the comic book.
Yep. Fistigons.
Kid.
What the
Alex
heck?
Shoots a kid. Yeah, which I love. I love, given his comic book story. But like, we also find it like the weird this is the big thing that I haven't mentioned. But the overarching thing through the first 4 or 5 episodes is that there's this weird white flaky dead guy. Dying guy in a secret room at Carolina's parents' church. Throughout this episode, we actually find out that it's Victor Von Doom. But it's not Victor Von Doom. But it turns out the Pride has been attempting to sacrifice random runaway kids in this weird ceremony that really ultimately revitalizes this flaky weird guy. It's also pretty clear that Jonah, this character's name, who is played by Julie McMahon, who previously played a pretty weird Dr. Doom in the 2005 and 2007 Fantastic Four movies. But it's clear that this character is Carolina's real dad as well. He wants to meet Carolina, and her mom is visibly shaken about you. There's some other small things and other big things that I haven't really mentioned, but that's process for the episodes that we have so far. Just attempted to roughly summarize all the stuff in 2 to 5. Ronnie, what do you think about the show so far, like with what we were left in episode 5?
Say that again for me.
What's your perspective about the show so far?
It still got me. It still caught me. It's like I said, there are a few points where I've been like, all right, that's enough about the parents. Let's move on to the kids. And the show's called Runaways, and I think both of you and I have both said they need to get out of Dodge.
When are they going to run away?
Well, yeah, that's the thing too. Is like I'm concerned that they actually might not, because there are several. Well, no, what the thing is like you could still keep this show is called Runaways, because there are various different Runaways moments, themes, references throughout almost every character's thing. So I think it could work, but if they don't actually run away, I'm going to be kind of frustrated.
Amen to that. But overall, I've enjoyed it. I mean, the character development is what's been key for me, because you can see, being familiar with the characters before, I can see where a lot of this is coming out. And Alex and Carolina, there's some subtle references to who she is, and different things in in her character in the books that have come out in the show, because there's a little surprise that you find out about Carolina later on in the book. I don't know if they're going to run with that or not, but I like the fact that they've made Chase a little less useless. Because in the book, he wasn't smart. He was the dumb jock, and that's who he was. He was a C student. He just, he was running the leapfrog, he was running the fistigons, but he was just guessing as he went. And this one, he actually
stealing his dad's actual stuff. He wasn't.
Yeah, and this
self.
And this one, he's like, he knows what it is. He knows how to use it, which I like. And also the character, I mean, like, you can see the actor, dude's buff. I mean, like, he's big. He looks like he can, hold his own in a fight. But the fear that he has on his face when his dad gets angry makes me feel for him. Almost cry for that kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. He has gone through a lot of stuff. We keep referencing the book. I do, and I apologize, but that's what I have to go off of. It actually shows him being physically assaulted by his father. In this one, they don't show that, thankfully. But it's
very clearly implied. The way he looks at his dad and the way his dad responds, it's clear that there's been physical and emotional abuse in their past.
Yeah. So like he'll reach for a coffee cup and he'll cringe. Like Chase will shy away, or anything like he dropped something and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll clean it up, Dad. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, come with us. We will not hurt you anymore. But it's that's fleshed out a lot more in this as well, and I appreciate that.
Ronnie, so, have you had any favorite moments or favorite character moments for characters in the TV show through the 5 episodes?
I was right along with you, man. When she's like, it listens to me. Gert and Old Lace, man.
Yeah.
I loved it. And then chasing the fistigons, his weapons of choice. So those
I was there's one or two moments for each character except for Alex, because there's really nothing, like I said at the beginning, like he's just kind of the glue some of them together so far in this. But Nico's first her using the staff in episode 5, and Carolina, really cool. There's a lot of really good visual translations for these characters so far in the first 5 episodes. And I think it's a good time for us to do this podcast for the show, because up to episode 4, it's not as vibrant a show until episode 5, in my opinion.
This is, well, in old wrestling terms, business is picking up. And, as far as that goes, and I think we're going to see. I think it's really going about to kick off in episode 6. I'm hoping
there are increasingly more loose ends that something's got to give.
Yeah, So it's about to kick off, and we're about to get some answers, and we're about to see a lot more of the stuff that we signed up for. I don't care who you say, you know, what you think you signed up for, but you signed up to see some superhero action.
Yeah,
you know, some superpowers, and you're probably going to get to see a lot more of that coming up.
Now, speaking of signing up, didn't you just get Hulu specifically for Runaways?
For Runaways.
Mm-hmm. So
that's tremendous.
So their model is working. It's
yeah, absolutely.
You know, really though. I mean, it's.
I would not have Hulu to this day.
Was in on this.
Yeah, I would not have Hulu to this day if Runaways was not a show on there. Mm-hmm. I specifically signed up just so I could watch this, and there, you know, and I actually enjoy Hulu. So I'm glad I signed up, but which we're going to, you know, is for a show that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, Runaways, man, it still got me.
Yeah, I just got Hulu at the end of August, honestly, solely for college football. There's a ton of channels. I do the full it's the $40 full version of it, but we don't have cable, and I have no real interest in it. So we basically do the full version of Hulu. That was solely for college football, but I also knew Runaways was coming along, so I was like, well, it's not a big problem, so
right.
it'll work out. So think about the episodes so far. One versus the comic book went, and any favorite moments or characters so far, or anything.
Okay, yeah, I will easily say my favorite moment was when she's about to punch the dinosaur. Okay,
yeah.
She's got her fist ready to go back, and they did it so well, and where, you know, she's just about to punch, and then Gert yells stop. So it was. That's probably, I hate to take one that Ronnie just used, and both of you guys have said that, but I will tell you that was probably one of my favorite parts. Easily, I love, like I said, being able to watch this with my daughter and have her enjoy it as well. So that's absolutely a plus, because there are very few shows where we can do that, where we can both sit down and watch a show. And so
you and your daughter can't sit and watch Punisher together then?
Unfortunately not.
Probably not. Yeah.
Unfortunately not.
Oh my goodness.
Now, one of the things that I alluded to earlier was about the fleshing out of the families and getting more background on the families. So yeah, we didn't get that much in the book, and it really seems to be at least right now in the series a very big focal point. And I'll tell you why. I have a theory as to why that is. I don't think this is spoiling anything. I'm not taking anything from the book in any way. But what I feel is going on here is that, you know, we witnessed their families do a really despicable act at the beginning in that first episode. They killed a girl in front, or at least they believe they killed a girl in front of all their kids, and they have no idea about it. So, you know, now we're trying to see, or they're trying to show us maybe they aren't so bad. But wait a second. What about that first episode? They killed a girl. So every time we see Chase hanging out with his dad, and now all of a sudden things are kind of coming together where, you know, maybe he doesn't hate him so much. Well, you're still going to have that in the back of your head. What happened?
Well, almost every single one of the parents has some level of reluctance, and yeah. I'm interested to see how this TV show fleshes out what brought them all together, such to the point that they all found human sacrifice to be acceptable. Because but yeah, I mean, the introduction of Julian McMahon's character at the end, there's clearly some sort of alien race type aspect to it, so there's a lot of interesting stuff getting ready to start.
Yeah, it's enough to keep you going, okay, where's the answers here, which is perfect for a series and for a lot to garner interest into something.
I mean,
look at
every
Lost
episode, I'm like, I need to watch it.
Speaking of Brian K. Vaughan, look at Lost and the Smoke Monster. Okay, did we ever get an answer for that? Maybe.
We just knew it was a security device.
We
watched talk about Lost.
We watched every episode to try and find out what was going on. Why the polar bear? What in the world?
Don't make me bitch about Lost on another podcast. Don't make me bitch about the fact that I can't get those 2 seasons back because that's as far as I got. So Adam, you had no history with Runaways. You had you've not read the comics. You haven't seen the episodes just yet. What are your thoughts on kind of what we've been talking about so far, being new to it?
Well, like I said, it was one of those things. All I know about them is what you guys have talked about, and it sounds really cool. Like it's one of those things that when I saw it show up on Hulu, I immediately sent Ronnie a text message and was like, "Dude, check this out." And I just haven't gone around to watching it yet, though. So now that I'm hear you guys talk about it, I think, man, this sounds actually pretty good. So I think, I don't know, I'm shuffling around TV shows right now, so I don't know what I'm going to watch next. But I think Runaways is probably going to might be the next one I watch.
Well, I think if this is, like I said earlier, I think this is a really good time for us to be having this podcast after episode 5, because if this was out after episode 4, my thought would be like, you know what, if you're not into comic books, this, that, and the other thing, I don't know if it's for you. Even if you are into comic books, I don't know if it's for you, because there hadn't been a lot of their power or technology type things come up until episode 5. But 5 episodes, and if my general opinion is if people watch the first 5 episodes and are not really intrigued or curious about what's going on, it's probably the series, obviously. It's probably not going to be for you, because this is, I was like, the point where I was like, that I have to wait another week to watch just one more.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I had for Runaways.
Very
cool
good.
Deal. Thank you, Josh. That was awesome.
Thank you. I love the comics. It's a lot of fun.
Good deal. So our basic take is telling everyone who hasn't watched it, watch it. Give it a chance. No matter what, I think you're going to like it. So another show that actually Jesse got me interested in, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I have a feeling that it doesn't get talked about enough. And I asked Jesse to work up a little bit of something for us. And that is a show called Superstore.
Indeed. Now, we just said, I don't know if we said it on the podcast. It was prior to the podcast. Ronnie, you've watched it.
Mm-hmm.
You said, and we got Josh and Adam who said they have not seen any of it, right?
No, I have no idea what it's about.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've seen an ad or something before. Is this what they all kind of work in, like a Walmart?
Yeah. It's
okay,
pretty.
Yeah.
It's basically
that's extent of my knowledge.
It's Walmart to the nth level sometimes, and they call it Cloud 9. But yeah, Superstore is about a group of people that work in a store and the relationships between said people. So there's really not a whole lot to garner other than it's clearly a comedy show, because there are some characters in here. Now we were talking about the show. Hold on a second. Prior to getting on here, and I think it's going to be Adam's discussion. Sorry, my mind's going blank here. I got to close my eyes and stop looking at the computer. We on Silicon Valley. Do you remember the lawyer, the crappy lawyer?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That is Ben Feldman, who plays Jonah on Superstore.
Oh, nice.
He's the main character. So we got Jonah. Mostly that's your main character, and also Amy, who is played by America Ferrera. Didn't you say she was Ugly Betty, Ronnie?
Mm-hmm.
At one point. This has got, I think we're in the middle of 3 seasons right now. The one character that I recognized off the bat was Mark McKinney, who is from The Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
Okay. And he plays the manager, Glenn, who has this
weird Muppet-like voice.
There you go. That is exactly what's going on there. And he is, my goodness, he's very...
He literally talks, "Hey, y'all, what's going on?"
Dude, that's him. That is him.
Only less country. A lot less country.
We have Cheyenne, who played by Nicole Bloom. I was looking at some of her stuff here. I thought they said she was in Shameless. I could be wrong. Let me double check.
I don't know.
Make sure. I'm looking at her films here. We have, she was Amanda in Shameless. So
never seen Shameless.
For a couple years. But anyway, she plays a kind of like a ditzy, younger female character. Oh, please. You could tell by the word she. But and then we have Garrett, who is the store announcer, played by Colton Dunn, which, by the way, Ronnie, he walks, even though his character
I figured he did, yeah.
Yes, even though his character is in a wheelchair, he actually is able to walk. Then we have Ronnie's favorite character, Dina.
No.
What is she, like the assistant manager /
overbearing assistant manager who is militant in how she reacts to everyone in the store.
No shenanigans.
None whatsoever.
She puts up with no shenanigans. And then we have Mateo, the man. Now I don't want to sound bad, but he's like gay to the nth level.
Yeah,
he really brings each one of these characters is to the nth level.
Yeah,
I would say
they are caricatures of different personalities. Thank you.
And they write these stories. They're only half hour long, but I mean, my goodness, it's just a comedy. But I think I first heard about this and was sold on it by one of the guys over at Kapow, Cliff, who was saying that he was watching it and it was actually very entertaining. And there is, of course, a lot of comedy in these, not just from the employees of the store themselves, but mostly from the customers.
Oh my gosh! So I don't mean to jump in, Jesse, but
no, you go ahead, man.
So between you have the storyline, and between each storyline break, they cut to the customers in the store, and when they cut to the customers in the store, it's like watching. It's like how they had the website People of Walmart.
Yes,
it's like watching that come to life. There are people eating like mayonnaise out of the jar, blowing their nose on the towels and putting them back. Like one kid had his head stuck in the slats of a chair and no one paid attention to it. They just kept on walking by him. And he's just like, help. And the fact that it's one of those everyday life comedies that I can't help but love. Having worked retail, it really helps me. If you've worked retail, you'll understand a lot of what's going on in there, in the mindset of the show. And I've never really worked in a big box store like that, but it's definitely if you've worked retail, you understand where they're coming from in every aspect.
Yeah,
of
certain things with retail are universal.
Oh yeah, like customers mainly.
One of my one of my favorite customer interactions off of there, or customer scenes, and they're only like maybe even 20 seconds long, if that was when an employee had died. Okay, so they're having this they're having this memorial service.
Oh, it's so bad.
The way they're paying tribute to the employee is they set up like some candles and stuff, and pictures of the employee with other employees of the store, and a picture of himself, and
candles lit around it. You can. It's obviously a memorial.
Yes,
to this man.
And the unfortunate part is that they put it close to the picture frames. So a customer walks by and picks up the picture frame of the deceased employee and then takes it with him. He's going to go buy the picture frame.
He's like, oh, yeah. Puts it in his basket and walks off. And they have this whole thing where there's a tornado that hits the store, rips the roof off the store, destroys it. And that's where they find out that Brett Brett is their top salesman. He's this older Asian man that never moves. When the camera's on him, he's standing there stone-faced, does not move, does not talk, doesn't do anything. They're like, did you hear that Brett just sold $5,000 in electronics? Like, he's the best salesman we've got. I don't know how he does it. And you're like, what?
Ow.
He doesn't move. What is going on? And it's fantastic. And Brett is the one. Everybody is going crazy over this tornado, and they don't think to stop to tell everybody. They put everybody in different parts of the store to survive this tornado, and Brett's outside gathering carts and cleaning up. He'll blow over this picnic station, the umbrella, and he'll run after the umbrella and pick it up and put it back, and it'll blow away again, and carts will run off. So he goes and gets the carts and puts them back, and the whole time. And then he doesn't realize that there's a tornado coming, and it's just like the god-awful storm. And then he looks up, and he sees the funnel cloud, and his only lines in the whole show are, oh, crap. And then, boom, they find out. They're like, where's Brett? Brett's missing. Brett's dead because the tornado got him. But I haven't got so far that eventually in season 3, as they talk about Brett being dead, Brett's dead. We found his foot. We did this, and then you look in the background and Brett's hanging clothes up on racks, and they don't pay any attention to it but Brett's very much alive, but they think he's dead. He just doesn't talk to anybody, so they don't know he's at work.
But by far my favorite character, I think, on the show has got to be Sandra.
Oh my gosh, she is hysterical. She's Hawaiian.
Yep. She's portrayed by apparently Kaliko Kauahi. There you go. That's my best attempt at pronouncing her actual name. But she is like she's so, I don't know. You feel for her, but she is like a complete pathological liar. Like she cannot stop and tell an actual fact. Instead, she starts with one little thing, and then it completely snowballs. And she's just a bit character too. I mean, she's not really the focus too much on most of the episodes, but she's in there a good bit. And I have a quote. I just hopped over here to Superstore, nbc.wikia.com, okay? And we have a quote. This is a complete lie, but Jeff, who, by the way, is like the regional manager of Cloud9, and she is supposedly in a relationship with him. Jeff is gay and completely into Mateo.
Yeah.
We will, other than that, so she's like spinning this huge lie about how Jeff has been trying to get with her. And this is the quote, Ronnie Adams. You ready for this?
Yes.
He pulled me into his Kia, and he said to me, Sandra, take out your taters. So
I did.
But anyway, okay. But if anybody's worked in retail, they can identify with some of the goofy stuff that this show puts on, and a lot of the show is about the kind of like the will they won't they romance between Amy and Jonah. And Jonah. But it's, I mean, I really can't say much other than it's a very fun half hour. My wife probably gets really either annoyed at me because I really laugh loud sometimes when some of these shows are on, and this one probably brings most of the funny. And I watch some funny shows, but it's good to kind of throw this in there amongst my Flash and the DC Legends of Tomorrow, all that serious stuff, and throwing a good. This is probably one of my favorite comedies on TV right now that I have ease of access to anyway.
It's one of those things that it's just I love a good comedy show. I love a good sitcom, and to me, this is a good sitcom. I mean, it's not a laugh track live in front of a studio. It's a multi-camera show, but it's one of those things where I have legitimately laughed out loud and scared my dog laughing because this show is so funny. there's a character in there, and I can't remember they call him Creepy something. I can't remember what it is, and he literally is creepy. He just walks around with a Tupperware thing full of grapes, and he licks them. He doesn't eat them; he just licks them. And I can't remember his name, but he he died. He legitimately died in the tornado.
Yes,
and they found his body inside the wall. They
remodeled and everything.
They remodeled the store, and they built the wall around him because he was hiding in the wall, and he died in there. And what he was doing was he was taking that opportunity to drill a hole into the ladies' bathroom so he could peek at them. But they built the wall around him, and he starved to death. So it was the Halloween episode where they tore the wall, part of the wall out, and they found him, and he's just hanging out of the wall. And the manager saying, attention customers, please don't go to Housewares because there's something completely terrifying there. Seriously, you'll have nightmares over the thing. Customers, please don't go to Housewares. Immediately, what do? Because it's Halloween, they're like, I'm going to Housewares. So all these customers, and they're like, Glenn, I don't think that's the best approach. He goes, no, you're right. No, seriously, customers, don't go. This is worse than any haunted house you've ever been to. They're like, oh, it's a haunted house. And they go, and there's just this crowd standing around this legitimate dead body going, wow, it looks so real. Oh, my gosh, how did they do this? They spent so much money on this. And, of course, it plays on that. And it sounds morbid, but it's really, really funny. And I feel a little bad now because I laughed at that.
Oh,
but no, but it's one of those things where if you just need a break from drama, from anything like that, definitely Superstore is the way to go.
Cheyenne's boyfriend.
Oh, what is his name?
I don't know.
Bo.
Yeah.
Bo is.
We haven't seen him, I don't think, at all in season 3. But I know they got at one point they were going to get married, and he's this. Oh, man, what would you call this guy? I know he's like idiot. Trying to be he's an idiot for sure. He's trying to be a DJ, and he does not have Cheyenne's best interest at heart at first. No. But, anyway, the whole point the whole reason I brought him up is because he has inspired me to annoy my child with every time I walk through the hall. So,
he makes the stereotypical DJ noise. He doesn't have anything that makes it.
No
he
equipment.
Does it. He makes it.
Dude, I don't care what the context is. Annoying DJ techno horn is the funniest thing ever.
It really is. Because
you can find it on your phone. You can just Google it, and it's a button you press, and you can do it whenever you want. And I've done that way more often than I ever should have. Always at the wrong moment.
Josh, you're fired.
I'm here to put in my 2 weeks notice.
But yes.
And that's exactly what it is. Like, he gets a job at Cloud9 and realizes that he's only, he's like, he wants to save up, man, I want to save up 5 stacks, so we can, $5,000, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, well, there's an old lady that she's like 90 something. And she's been working. It's how long have you worked there? And she's like, for the better part of 20 years. And it's like, and how much money have you saved? Almost $900. And he's like, oh no, I quit. That's it for me. I'm out. He's going on. This. If you ain't going to pay me any money, I'm leaving. And it's just it's the little characters in this that really set this show off. Glenn is you can't help but love him. He's such a sweet character.
Super religious.
And he has nothing but the best intentions for everybody that works there. He has to lay people off, and he can't do it. He physically can't do it. It's making him sick. He's stressed out, and he doesn't. He goes, "They're my family." It's like I'm firing my family, and knowing, no, he doesn't know it, but knowing that none of this, almost every one of those people would throw him under the bus. He loves them, and you're like, oh, he's such a sweet guy, but he's hysterical because he's so clueless.
And Dina gives him no leeway whatsoever.
Yeah.
Was it the last? There was the last episode. I think Glenn sets up a nativity scene, and Dina's like, no. According to HR policy, blah blah blah, you cannot have anything depicting religious, religious tone and whatsoever. And he's like, well, that's not religious. And she's like, oh, this isn't Three Wise Men here. And she starts punting the wise men across the store, and he starts freaking out.
He's dressing up the wise men in baby overalls. So it's just a farm scene. I can have a farm scene. She's like, so this isn't a wise man. And she picks up what's clearly a wise man in a crown wearing overalls meant for a baby. And he's like, no, it's just a farmer. And she goes, okay. So it wouldn't, bother you if I did this, and punts it across the store. So she punts all three wise men and then picks up the baby doll that's representing the baby Jesus. And she's like, and he freaks, he loses it. He's like, no, you can't
grabs the baby and runs off.
Kick the baby Jesus and runs off. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is awful, but it's so funny. And, it's obviously it's ludicrous and would never really happen in real life, but it's just, oh my gosh, this show is, another one I can't recommend enough.
Yeah, I won't belabor the point. Obviously, I didn't really have a whole lot prepared because I knew it most likely was just Ronnie that's kind of watched it, because I don't think I've heard either of you guys say anything about it before. But regardless, if you're looking for a fun time, check out Superstore. There's 2 seasons, I think, on Hulu right now. I'm pretty certain. And then if
3, that's what I was going to ask. Is it is available on Hulu from the beginning. Then.
From the beginning, and it's real time too.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, you'll have a good time if you've worked retail.
I was going to say, having worked in retail for 4 or 5 years, like I'm going to check that out.
Oh, yeah. You'll have
8 years of retail, my friend, before my current job. At AT&T, and my friend and I actually were going to start a viral web series about working in the cellular industry, and we still could, because a lot of these customer interactions they've had on this show, I have legitimately had.
Dude, I'm telling you, I worked at one store and I became store manager, and then 6 months later they closed the whole company down.
Oh,
dude, I'm telling you, my last 2 or 3 months, we legit started a list of stupid shit customers said. And like I have it somewhere, but like we haven't really fully unpacked in ever. But whenever I unpack that, I will and send it to all of you.
That would be wonderful.
It's magical.
I never worked in retail. I worked at KFC, and then I worked at an arcade. Okay, and then before I got the job that I'm in now. So the arcades probably, well, I don't know. KFC might count, but
no, it does count.
Food. Okay,
food, just working with the public. Yeah, that's a real general qualifier.
I had a list of the shit customers that came into the arcade that you knew, okay, here they come. They're walking in. They were the ones that you were going to have trouble with. And when I left the arcade in Bluefield, they had this huge desk in the back. And when I say huge, it was put together in that room. So it ain't walking out of that room. And I folded up a piece of paper that I'd kept for like weeks, knowing that the place was closing down. And I shoved it in there into that desk. So the next people that moved in, if it was going to be an arcade, which strangely enough, it ended up being an arcade with the same exact name. How that happened, I have no idea, because the guy who owned Laser One shut it down. And then it became, I went down there.
Laser 2.
No, dude, I went down there two years ago.
That would have been genius.
Yeah, I really would have.
I walked into the place and I'm like, I wonder what's in our old spot. This is 10 years later. I walk in there at our old spot in the mall, and there sits Laser One, open up, video games all over the place. I'm like, how did this happen?
And you're looking at it like I saw you die. No,
I did. I sent the owner, well, the guy that was the manager at the time, after all this went down, he was going behind the owner's back trying to secure all these video games, but that store wasn't going. So the owner shut his whole business down, but somehow the new guy was able to keep the name, which I've never understood to this day, because as far as we knew, Laser One had ended its existence.
It's actually called John's Arcade, but he just never changed the sign.
Well, the thing is that, I can remember they bought the new neon sign. Well, you don't want to take that down. It looks pretty darn fancy.
Oh, so, John. Lazy John.
Lazy
John, DBA Laser One.
Or Laser John.
Laser John.
When two become one.
All right, I'm done.
Adam, you have been watching a show that I apparently need to watch.
Yes.
And it is called Silicon Valley.
It is. So mine's not going to be near as long as the two aforementioned, but I didn't really prepare much other than just a casual conversation. But basically, this is just a comedy series based in Manhattan about 6 young friends and the struggle to find success. Wait, no, that's Friends. Never mind.
Well, I was going to say, wait a second, Manhattan.
You're fired.
Wrong side of the country.
No,
Silicon Valley.
I remember them talking about the ferret laws, and I certainly don't remember it being involved in Manhattan.
They go to the Central Perk and all drink coffee and complain about each other.
No, Silicon Valley is just it's basically exactly what it is. It takes place in Silicon Valley, and it just kind of follows this group of guys who one of them has this revolutionary idea that's going to just change the way that people do their everyday business, from super high res X-rays for doctors to us watching 4K video over LTE. So he's created this concept and this applicable concept called middle out compression, which is actually a really funny part of the show. We'll only mention it. We won't go into detail about how it comes. But honestly, goodness, that's one of the funniest parts of that whole daggone show is when they go into detail about how they come up with the whole middle out compression algorithm and stuff. But basically, it just kind of follows Richard Hendricks. He's the guy. He's the wonder kid who comes up with middle out compression, and Erlich Bachman, who's probably the most quotable person on television right now. Nelson Big Head, they call it, his last name is Big Eddie, I think is his name. And then
they just call him Big Head.
Yeah, they call him Big Head.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, dude, it's written by Mike Judge, and as Calandra said earlier, very appropriately, Mike Judge can do no wrong right now. So no, but then it has Bertram Guilfoyle, who's your everyday run-of-the-mill Satanist.
What?
Oh, dude.
What?
Dude.
I think he besides Ehrlich, he is probably my favorite character off of that show.
Yeah.
I have no idea why, because it's so deadpan,
Dude,
and I think that's what it is.
His dynamic with the other character that he's always given shit.
Dinesh.
Yeah, Dinesh. Dude, they clearly hate each other, and the stuff that they come up with, and his just real one-liner quips to just verbally smack him down are flawless.
Oh yeah, and there's even a part in the in one of the shows where something and we'll probably give away spoilers because I don't really give a crap, but there's a part where they have their own business, and they go around and around and around with, are we going to have our own business? Are we going to sell it to somebody? Are we going to do it with money? Are we going to give our money to some douche canoe who just drives a McLaren and tucks his shirt in at the front of his belt buckle? Anyway, they're trying to get Guilfoyle to come back as an engineer, and what's his face? The guy that plays, he's on The Office. What's his name?
Jared.
Well, his real name is Donald, but they call him Jared. Yeah. But at one point they call him OJ, original Jared. But anyway. So he's talking to Richard Hendricks about, we really need to get Guilfoyle back in here. And he was like, well, I can't. He doesn't want to be here. And he was like, no, he does, because his insults, he classifies his insults as poetic, and they truly are. They're really like I can't. If I knew somebody who could deliver,
they're so
insults,
well done.
yeah, if I knew someone who could come up with insults this well, like, I would be like, dude, before I comment on Facebook, please proofread what I'm getting ready to put and rewrite it so that I can sound like you. I mean, he's so brilliant when it comes to the insults. But yeah, so his one-liners are great. Who else is in it? We mentioned Jared, OJ. And then Gavin Bell.
Oh my God, Gavin Belson.
So Gavin Belson is the CEO of Hooli, which is obviously like a nod to Google. But Hooli is the most ridiculous tech company on the face of the planet. Like, he's got his own like a Swarma, or what are they called?
Adam, you're cutting out, buddy.
Did he drop?
Womp womp.
Yeah, I think he dropped. He was working on with a bad battery anyway.
Oh yeah, that is right. His battery was low.
Crap.
Yeah, so I think he dropped on it.
I'll take a couple quick comments if
absolutely.
Maybe he can figure a different thing out. One of the things for me with this show is, like, literally everybody on this show I was introduced to through this show.
Wow.
Like Kumail Nanjiani plays Dinesh. He's hilarious. TJ Miller is in it.
Oh, you're kidding me.
This is the first time he's early. This is the first time I ever saw TJ Miller. I didn't know about him. I didn't know he had stand-up. I've seen a couple of Netflix stand-ups since he was on this show. But, like, first episode, it's just ridiculous. And have you ever it's on Comedy Central. It's really weird. I've only seen 1 or 2 episodes of it. Have you ever seen the Gore Burger show on Comedy Central?
No.
Dude, he does the voice for Gore Burger, but, like, it's this huge puppet, like, it's real life, but it's this gigantic puppet monster thing that hosts his own talk show. Like, the whole format is basically like Tonight Show with Jay Leno or whatever. But, like, he's just this big monster that's extremely offensive, and it's just really weird. Anyway, like him, Tom Middleditch is basically the main actor.
Yeah, it's so funny. After watching Silicon Valley, all of a sudden I start seeing him in those commercials for whatever phone company where he's doing the mic drop. Mm-hmm. Like, talking, and then all of a sudden he's doing the mic. I'm like, wait a second.
Oh, that's him?
Well, yeah, that's funny. I was getting ready to say, if you've never seen Silicon Valley, most people would probably just know him from those really shitty Verizon ads.
There you go.
But the funny thing is, like, he's so typecast. Like, he's the exact same character in anything I've ever seen him in. Is just like the really socially awkward nerd.
He plays it good. He plays it good.
The character that he does in Silicon Valley is the same person that he is in those Verizon ads. Like, it's just, it's weird. And then Martin Starr is the Satanist that we were talking about. Ronnie, you would know him. He was the professor in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was all the kids' little. He was their chaperone to the quiz thing. That they went to DC for. He had the long hair and stuff. Yeah. So he plays a Satanist in the show. So it's a little different, but
a little bit.
Zach Woods is in this. He also plays, like, just a really socially awkward nerd. Apparently, he's really pop. He's on Veep. Like, he's apparently, like, got a pretty big role in Veep now.
Really?
I've never seen Veep.
I haven't either.
But, he was I thought he was on it for a long time. Now that I see that it's only 3 episodes. But anyway, yeah, he was in 51 episodes of The Office as Gabe.
He was
as Gabe.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't watch The Office. I don't like The Office. But yeah, that's
it was the
that
later
most
episodes.
people would like. Yeah.
Okay, I know Gabe.
The big, tall, skinny nerd. But yeah, I was just kind of going through, like, the characters and kinda...
Well, this is definitely something I would probably enjoy. So I need to check it out. Now, is it on Hulu or Netflix?
It's
HBO.
HBO.
Yeah, you can.
Oh,
Do you know anybody with HBO? Because you can easily steal it.
I actually have HBO. I get it free for having an unlimited plan with.
You should
AT&T.
definitely watch it. It's grade A. It's
absolutely.
Okay.
Has there been any news on the new season that you're aware of, Josh?
Not that I've seen. I mean, I feel like I have not seen Silicon Valley in a long time, but that's kind of the MO for HBO shows is you watch it for a full season, which goes on for 2 months, and then you wait 10 months for the new season to start.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm just in the regular roll of bull crap stuff.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that my fear going into the show was it was going to be a bunch of technical jargon, and I was not going to like it because it was going to be for a person that would probably understand more about a startup company in the techno biz than I would. And I'll tell you right now, I couldn't have been more wrong. There is it's not that they dumb it down because it is a very smart series, but it's funny enough and just edgy enough to actually, breach that gap for me.
Is it anything like IT Crowd?
Not really. It's IT Crowd is the same thing, but like super British.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's tough to compare.
I love the IT Crowd, but they're not really comparable.
Nah, okay. Yeah, it's tough to compare the two. It's a smart comedy that it'll leave you in stitches and waiting for the next episode because they do a great job of setting up kind of cliffhangers too. Like, okay, well, these guys are starting from the ground up, and you want them to succeed. So that's basically the first part of the series. The first season is trying to watch to see if these guys can get their stuff together to try and
the first season or two, like the cliffhangers are really strong. Like it's very bingeable.
Absolutely bingeable. I did binge it. I went through the first 2 seasons pretty quickly when I could. This is one of those shows, HBO. Luckily, this is one of those ones you don't have to worry about a whole lot of nudity. I don't think that's happened at all. Oh, there's some suggestive stuff that goes on, that's for sure. But it's nothing where you've got to worry about a lot of that. It's all comedy, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's all just like really lewd, crude humor and vulgarity. Like that's the only reason it's on HBO, and it really doesn't go to the nth degree with that. Really, like it what they do would not work anywhere else, but they don't. I mean, it's not to the extreme or anything.
Okay. Well, awesome. Once again, like I said, I always trust you guys, you three, with any suggestions you have for me. Like I said, I would never have even thought to watch Superstore unless Jesse, until Jesse said something about it. And I was like, I need to watch this. And I think I aggravated him with it. I was like, dude, it's so funny, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, I saw that, you moron.
Whatever, man.
And,
I was going to say, one of the things that I have been doing, I'm sure you guys have seen, I linked up my TV Time app to Facebook. So if anybody out there is interested, TV Time's I think it's catching on. I was trying to test out different TV apps just to see if there was a way for me to be able to log into something and log that I watched it and then share it at the same time. And this thing seems to do the job well. I mean, I've seen there's a lot of people that use this app, especially like if I check into, like today I checked into a Flash episode, and at least 30,000 people have clicked that they watched it. So I know that they've got the app, and you can friend people on there as well. And I'll tell you the best thing, the funnest thing on there is like going through, they will have stills. I don't know if it's like every 3 or 5 seconds of a whole episode. So you can go through there and create your own meme of an episode.
Nice.
It's very fun. But anyway, that's the easiest way for me to kind of keep track of what I'm watching now that I'm all across these platforms, Netflix, Hulu, CW app, all these things that I'm like, okay, what show do I need to watch next? Where am I at in these shows? And like I could, if I pop if I pop up TV Time right now, I could tell you exactly where I'm at. Last time I watched Twilight Zone, because I just recently watched that probably about a month ago. I've got to. I say I want to bring it up here, and then it's going to take forever to actually load. That's wonderful. No, I got a watch list here. Here's what I'm in the process of watching, okay? The Flash, DC Legends of Tomorrow. I started Dark. I don't know if you guys have started Dark yet on Netflix.
I have not, but I've heard.
I haven't yet. I've heard different things about it. I'm starting to kind of get intrigued about it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the first episode done. It's in German.
Oh.
Okay. It's clearly dubbed for English, but you can also do, completely go over to German audio and do subtitles if that's your thing. But it's pretty interesting.
No, thank you.
Season 6, episode 1 of Curb Your Enthusiasm right now. I'm halfway through season 2 of American Horror Story. I've got Josh. You said you ducked out on Future Man after episode 2, didn't you?
I watched the first episode and was not. I mean, I will probably watch more of it because I can see it getting somewhere. But I was not really impressed with the first episode.
I wasn't either. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it was really.
Speaking of lewd,
there's some stuff a little too rough for me. I was just like, no, I'm good.
I haven't started any Walking Dead this season. And speaking of Twilight Zone, yes, I am at season 4, episode 2.
That's awesome.
So yeah. Anyway,
watch those.
It's a fun way to keep track of what you're watching and also share amongst people. So that's my plug for TV Time. If anybody, I'm cool. I'm sure that other people are going to be starting to grab it. But you can find me at Stiznarkey on there if you want to. Okay, Ronnie, I turn it over to you.
Okay. We've gone over the shows that we're kind of all watching or are fans of right now. There's other shows I know that we are fans of. I don't want to take anything away from the Radio Legend Broadcasting Network because we did a whole TV party tonight with a bunch of us on there with The Punisher. But if you want one of the best Marvel Netflix series to date, then you need to watch The Punisher. That is just an incredible show. They flesh out characters more than the comic book ever thought of doing, as far as Frank Castle as the Punisher and a few other things. We all agreed that there could have been less of the agent that he was finding
Agent
himself.
Madani.
Yeah, Agent Madani. But it's a fantastic show. Another one that Riverdale, I know Jesse mentioned that. Riverdale is – I'm an Archie Comics fan, and I know Josh cringes when I say that.
But if you recall, like I got turned around a little bit because I
read the first
Jughead book, and it was super good.
Zdarsky wrote that, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I will say, like, I watch a lot of not a lot of the show. I watch. I'm up to date on Flash and Supergirl. I love those shows very much. And there's a lot
that was next on the list. Yeah,
I watch those a lot, and there's a lot of I watch those on Hulu, and the occasional ad breaks. There's a lot of the Riverdale ads, and I just don't. I don't know, dude. Like the ads and the trailers do nothing for me.
Riverdale is actually not on Hulu anymore. It is Netflix exclusive.
Real? Well, I'm sure it's on the CW app as well.
Yeah, it's on the CW app.
Well, either way, like I see a lot of ads for it. But they do. But to be fair, they do advertise it as a CW thing. But,
it's definitely a teen drama, and I'm a sucker for a teen drama, which is why one of the reasons why I really like Runaways, because it is very much a teen drama right now. And then I was a big fan of Friday Night Lights.
God, I love that show.
I mean, if you like Friday Night Lights, you'll like Riverdale.
God, Friday Night Lights was so good.
It really was. It was like one of those shows where it's like, I'm not going to like this. This is just about high schoolers. And, oh, my gosh, I'm so addicted to to this show. What happened? I was in the middle of not liking it. Now, but
that's the weird thing for me is, though, I don't know that I've ever liked any show like Friday Night Lights. Like that's probably the only teen drama that I recall having watched a lot of. But I mean, to be fair, if that's my only example, I did love it.
And I was so sad when they took it off of Netflix, because it was another one of those shows that I could watch the seasons over and over and over again. But you've got you've got everything to choose from. You've got there's so much out there on these streaming apps, as far as original series, catching up, binge watching the previous seasons. Walking Dead is on Netflix. Superstore and Hulu gets the day after live shows, or when they go live, like Superstore and what's another one that goes that's just about any NBC show.
Mm-hmm. I think the Orville's the same way.
The Orville is on there. The Orville is. I'm not even a Star Trek fan, and the Orville is an homage to Star Trek, and I find that show so hard not to watch. I love the Orville. Now, Seth MacFarlane and I don't agree a lot in political, and we just don't agree a lot on our views. But and his views come out in that show, in the writing and everything. But it's one of those shows where I don't even pay attention to that. I don't know what has me, hooked on the show, but the Orville is one of those, another one of those shows that I absolutely love.
Are either of you watching Discovery at all? The other Star Trek?
No.
I'm good.
Me either. It's just, I was going to say that this is probably some of the best Star Trek that I've seen since TNG.
Yeah, I was going to chime in too. I was a huge Next Generation fan, and Orville feels almost identical, but with more tongue-in-cheek humor. Because going into it, I expected Family Guy in space. I was like, this is going to be really bad.
Those are my exact words.
So bad. I expected it to be super, super bad. And I watched the first 2 episodes, and I was like, really? Because this, it's almost literally identical to Next Generation.
To Star Trek, yeah.
Yeah, there are so many Next Generation episodes that they have almost blatantly straight up stolen from. But they're well done. It's a very science-focused sci-fi, not science-focused, but there's more of a science aspect to the sci-fi in the way that Next Generation really approached the genre. And I've been really impressed, surprisingly impressed.
That's always been the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars. Star Trek is the science part, and Star Wars is the fantasy part.
And that's why I hate the new Star Trek movies,
because it's more fantasy and action.
Well, no, it's just explosions in space, and there's nothing wrong with that. But dude, don't throw the Star Trek name on it. That's bullshit.
So
I'm done with that tangent.
My next question is real quick. We'll start with Josh. And then we'll go Jesse, and then Adam. Are you there? Because I see you in here, but you are muted for some reason. But if you're not here, then we will move on. But we'll start with Josh, and we'll go Jesse. With all this stuff, that we know that we're caught up, and one of the saddest things I've ever seen on Hulu is the little thing that says "all caught up," and I'm like, no.
Which, by the way, do you guys like the new design of Hulu?
No.
Not me either.
It's the only one.
I don't know what the old one was. Whenever I started it in late August, it's been the same since, and I like it. It's not bad. I don't mind it.
Okay.
I don't know any other, to be honest with you.
I'm not a fan.
With all this media that we've got, all caught up, we get caught up, and we have to wait a week. There are certain times where we just want something on in the background, or we're cooking dinner, or we're cleaning the house, or whatever, and we have those shows that we can just they're our go-to shows. So I just want to know, older shows that might be off the air or anything, or anything like that are your go-to shows that are still streaming that you could probably quote, from the beginning of an episode to the end. Josh, what are like one or two of your go-to shows?
Oh, well, see that's a hard question for me because I'm not big on rewatching shows.
Oh,
like if the only show that I like whenever I was in college, I rewatched Family Guy over and over and over again because it was like the weird that with DVDs just got big, right? And so
yeah.
But I mean, there's not like I've watched Friday Night Lights a couple 3 times, but I mean that's about as like if I watch an episode, like I'm done. Like I don't rewatch stuff. It's not really in line with your questioning, but kind of a funny random like. So whenever I'm the last one to leave the house for work for the day, like we keep the TV on for the dogs because if they hear the least little noise outside, they start barking. Sure. So like if TV's on, it might muffle that and they don't bother neighbors and stuff. So we just have like a digital antenna. Mm-hmm. So that's all that we really get that can stay on because if we put Netflix or Hulu on, it'll say, "Are you still watching?" and it won't be on right while we're gone. So we do
judgmental.
Yeah, right.
Are you still watching?
Are you still this pathetic?
Don't tell me how to live my life. All right.
Thanks for judging my weekend, Hulu.
Right.
But like, so what I do is I turn on the digital antenna, and there's a channel on there called LAFF, the Laugh Channel.
Right,
dude. It's all these like not super old, but like 80s plus sitcoms.
Nice.
I mean, like some days I'll be the first one to come home and I'll just leave it on while I'm on the computer catching up or something, and I'm not paying attention. But I have in the background, I have had on way more episodes than I ever thought I would ever be exposed to of Night Court.
Yes. Yes.
And it is actually really not bad.
It's a really funny show, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been so much Night Court on. So there's that channel has Night Court and the old Ellen sitcom from the 90s.
Oh, wow.
And the Drew Carey show.
Oh,
and
Cleveland Rocks.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like little weird stuff where it's like I'm not a big fan of this show, but it's okay. Like I'll sit and listen to it, and it's so that's kind of weird. But yeah, I've talked to so many people. They're like, yeah, I've seen this. I've watched Lost 17 times total, front to back. Like I can't think of anything that I've really
don't judge me,
Calanders. That's fine. Well, I'm the outlier because I have so many friends that do that with all these different TV shows, and I'm like, I don't know. I just can't really rewatch stuff.
No, I mean that's totally understandable too. A lot of people, they're one and done. It's boring after that because they already know what happened.
Yeah.
But there's several shows that I can just that are funny, and I'm weird because I pick these things apart. I look at it from different aspects, or how I didn't see that the first time around, things like that. So, but Jesse, I'm gonna go to you. Do you have a go-to show?
There's got to be some criteria in order for me to rewatch something again. Okay. All right. So it can be something heavily steeped in continuity.
Okay.
All right? So I can't jump into. If I want to jump into Lost, it's not like I have all the absolute favorite episode of Lost that I got to go watch.
Right.
That's one piece of it. So it can't be, not a whole lot of backstory. And there's a lot of great episodes that are standalone from series such as the aforementioned Twilight Zone, Black Mirror. That's a good one. But I'll tell you right now, the one that I could sit down and probably I'm going to grab something to eat. I want to sit down, watch something, half hour, 20-minute show. That's going to be Rick and Morty.
Okay.
Easily Rick and Morty.
Okay.
Yeah, I can sit down and watch. I actually, I have a few episodes that are go-to for me. I'm like, okay, I will watch that one or I'll watch that one. But that is recently, I'd say that's it. because I'm just like Josh. I can't go back and be like, okay, I want to sit down and rewatch this or this, because most of the stuff that I watch has got a large amount of shows that's come before it, or at least there's, it's got a lot of history. I was big into Quantum Leap for a while, and I didn't mind going back, and because those sometimes could be a bit standalone.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were just, there's the overreaching arc of Sam's got to try and get back home. But I could hop into a Evil Leaper episode with no problem or whatever. So I liked, and TNG is almost the same way. We talked about TNG. There was quite a bit of standalone stuff there as well. But
yeah, a lot of those were episodic. Yeah.
But easily, I would say most recently, I've revisited Rick and Morty many a time. So
that kind of jogged my memory. Like, I've rewatched a lot of Rick and Morty. We jumped into it when the second season was still going on. I was like, oh, that's awesome. There's all this material and there'll be more. And then there was like the 18-year gap between season 2 and 3 or whatever. But so yeah, I've rewatched a lot of Rick and Morty. And now that I think about it, like, it just sit down, like, I can rewatch anything, Simpsons season 2 to like 9 or 10, any episode during that range on it, I probably can quote it word for word from start to finish. It really just anything Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll pull out an old DVD or anything of the few things that are on Netflix, including the new season. Like, just anything on there.
Dude, I worked from home for close to 5 years until recently, and I had a TV downstairs in my basement, and I couldn't turn on the TV and have anything in the background for fear of really wanting to watch it and not getting any work done.
Right.
So that was like one of my biggest fears. I go back to work, and some lady must have an unlimited plan, because I stopped by her cube a few days back, and she's sitting there working away, and she's got Futurama on her phone.
Nice.
I'm like, she's got her headphones in, and I'm like, how? But
nothing. I'm working.
Exactly. So because I was
actually typing.
That's a good. It's
typing Futurama fan fiction.
I've not actively sought out Futurama a lot, but I have. When we had cable, and if it was on Comedy Central, which was often, I'll leave that on. Like, Futurama was really good. Futurama, Simpsons, Rick and Morty, Mystery Science Theater, and then in the past 3 years, this is very atypical for me because I'm not really a fan of the network sitcom general genre. But like, we really like The New Girl.
Really?
Yeah, The New Girl's super good. We like that a lot.
Okay. Is that Zooey Deschanel?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've not watched any.
It's pretty funny.
Zooey. I would have to say I have several go-tos that I can just turn on and forget and put in the background. And sometimes I'll get caught up in it because I'll remember, oh, this is, one of my favorite episodes, or, this one was really good. But one of those shows for me is Parks and Recreation. And it's not because of, what is her name? Well, I can't remember anybody's name tonight. The main actress.
Yep. I would have known it had you not requested us to mention it. It's straight left my memery.
Nice.
Hold on. I'm going to right now.
All right.
Not Tina Fey.
Not Tina Fey. Amy Poehler.
There we go.
Yeah. You said Tina Fey, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's Amy Poehler because they are inseparable.
Yeah.
But no, Amy Poehler, she's funny. I find her in the show. I find her character sometimes funny, sometimes likable. But compared to the other characters in the show, she's terrible. Because you have two of my favorite TV characters ever in one show, and that is Ron Swanson and Andy Dwyer. This show made Chris Pratt. I don't care what you say. This show made Chris Pratt because he is so natural in the show. is just so funny and fun loving and everything. I mainly watch it to watch him because
I don't think he wasn't like
he was supposed to be in the first season and that was it.
Yeah, I was going to say it didn't seem like they had a big part planned for him.
No.
But then he was so cute, and the ladies loved him, and he's funny.
Well,
and like he was funny too, though. He was.
They said because he was so funny and so good at what he did, at what little he had, they're like, no, we need to bring him back as a recurring character.
Wasn't most of his material like ad libbed?
They refused to let anybody ad lib on that show.
Okay, I don't know where I got. I thought I'd read like
for him.
Okay,
except for him.
He was so good at what at ad libbing and doing, like I watched bloopers, watched the outtakes of this show, and the outtakes Amy Poehler, she was on trial for something, and she was telling everybody, okay, we're going to get this done, we're going to win, so I need you to do this, I need you to do this. She goes, Andy, I need you to go to my office, into my desk, and he's watching her, and he just looks off into the distance, and she goes, and I need you, Andy, look over here, and like she loses it because he just did it like naturally. He just looked off like he wasn't paying attention. It was like playing with his face with his fingers, and she lost it, and they were like, what'd he do? He's like. He just started looking off like he wasn't paying attention, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, that was so funny! That was so funny!" And they kept it. He did it again. They let him do it because it was just so he did it so naturally, and
that show is solely the reason why he ended up in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, because
it's got to be.
It showcased what he could do.
Yeah,
and the comedic timing that he has. Now he has shown his dramatic side because of Zero Dark 30 and a few other,
He was in Zero Dark 30?
Yes, he was.
I've never seen it. I didn't know that.
He was in Zero Dark 30 and a couple other, he can play the action role, which is in Jurassic Park. He can play the action comedy, which is, Guardians of the Galaxy. So
I need to rewatch Jurassic World. Did I tell you my story about Jurassic World?
No. What was that?
So we saw it when we were living in upstate New York because they had a drive-in theater up there and it was awesome.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But like I got it. We went into it and watched it, and like the first 2/3, I was like, "Wow, this is so bad.
Yeah.
This movie is terrible." And then something happened at some point, and the last third of the movie, I realized it was just like a really bad but enjoyed as such Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Like I wish I'd have known that beforehand. I probably would have. And like the last third, I had a blast. Like I loved it, and I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, okay." I wish I would have known what this was going to be. I was kind of expecting the first Jurassic Park, which it definitely is not.
Right. You can't go into it expecting the first Jurassic Park. You have to go into it not expecting anything, just wanting to have fun.
Yeah, dude, if you go into it just expecting like high quality film, it is not going to be a good time. But like if you just go into it being like, I would love to see really silly stuff and have a lot of fun, you're going to love it.
Yeah. And that's what I went in, I didn't expect. There were moments where I relived watching Jurassic Park for the first time in theaters, in that when they go into the park and you hear the fanfare, the and I was like, okay, this is great. And then all of a sudden I'm like, so they've genetically created a T-Rex and a whatever and I'm like, no, this is a monster movie.
Well, yeah. See, that didn't hit me until like near the end when it was clear the two things were going to fight each other.
Yeah. Oh my God.
This is clearly a Godzilla movie, and I should have enjoyed it so far as such. I really do want to rewatch it because the context was important for me with that one.
Right. And then I'm kind of going in with the same aspect of watching the new Jurassic World movie that's coming out in June, I think. So I'm looking forward to that one. But so I can go back and watch. Another classic Andy Dwyer moment. He calls himself the shoe shinest of the in the City Hall. So they're all, they work for the Parks and Recreation Department of the local government, and Ron Swanson is everyone's boss in that office, but he's a strict libertarian and he doesn't care and he hates the government.
Yeah, dude.
And he just wants to watch it all burn. And so he just sits in the office and doesn't talk to anyone.
That Parks and Rec was really
the first season's crap.
Well, but that was really the very beginning of Chris. Is his name Pratt?
Chris Pratt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely blanked for a second. But yeah, like that was the beginning of his career, and it was also the beginning of
Nick Offerman.
Yeah, dude. Because Nick, since then, I've read Nick Offerman's book. I've watched a couple of his different stand-up things. Like, he's got a really interesting story, and like he's a really funny dude, and he's married to one of the women that was on
Will and Grace.
Yeah, Will and Grace.
And she actually plays the librarian in Parks and Rec. His ex-wife.
Megan Mullally, I think it's her name.
He's got two ex-wives in
super
this show.
funny together too.
Yeah.
Like in real life.
In the show they play off each other so well. But he's like, I hear the distinct sounds of cloven hooves. That means Tammy 2 is around. So he calls her Tammy 2 because his first wife was Tammy, and he married another Tammy, and they're both equally as they're just awful. They're just terrible. So so you've got
Aubrey Plaza.
Aubrey Plaza is in it.
Who was she was a mainstay I'd say mainstay, but she showed up quite a bit in Legion, yeah.
Yeah, yep. And then you've got but so they come to Andy. Somebody comes to Andy and it's like, Andy, what are you doing right now? And he's holding a bottle of Pepto-Bismol. And he goes, I was just about to conduct a scientific experiment where I huck this against the wall as hard as I can. And that's it. That's the whole scientific experiment.
Yeah, that was it.
And I laughed the hardest I've ever laughed at that one line, and I don't know why. It just caught me, and I giggle inside thinking about it now because I was like, to him, that's a scientific experiment. He's like, what? I don't know. It's just, it's one of those shows where I could pick up any season after season 1 and, mid season 2 on and just, and love it. Yeah.
That was a really big jumping off point for all kinds of, like, Adam Scott did a lot of stuff before that, but like that's pretty much he wasn't really known for anything until that. And then that was kind of the redemption for Rob Lowe. It brought Rob Lowe back. Mm-hmm.
So, and his character is amazing too.
Aziz Ansari.
Aziz Ansari. Which I can't stand his character in that, but in a good way.
Right. Yeah.
Treat yourself.
Yeah. I would
treat yourself is so awesome.
If I worked with him, I would end up punching him. And I found that hilarious.
Well, like he's known as a stand-up comedian, but like I've read that his approach to stand-up is a little weird.
I've never seen him.
I've seen him twice. Once, like, we went to his show. I think we saw him in Nashville, and then once we saw him as like an unannounced encore in a New York City comedy club.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I was surprised by that because I had always heard before that he doesn't like write new material and test it out in comedy clubs. He writes new material and takes it to like random malls where they grab people and test a trailer out, that whole format.
Oh, wow.
And that's how he used to test out is what I'd heard. I don't know if that's real or not, but I was like, that's kind of half-assed. That's like in the grand scheme of stand-up comedy, that is about as like corporate shitty as it gets. But I mean, we saw him at New York City and he looked like he had just woken up.
Yeah.
It was like 12:30 a.m. and he looked like he had just crawled out of bed. And
he probably did.
Threw on some pants and walked down, and it was good. Like, we had a blast. So
I'm gonna take a nap. Wake me up when my set's on.
And the other show that I can always go back and watch is Chuck.
Not seen one episode of that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Chuck.
Chuck is Chuck Bartowski is your everyday loser. he was kicked out of school, so he got a job at his local Buy More, which is Best Buy, working for the Nerd Herd, which is the Geek Squad, and he falls into becoming a supercomputer for that the NSA and the CIA want. His old college roommate sends him this file, and he opens up an email, and it puts all this information, this government information, into his head, so he can look at somebody and flash on them and know everything about them if it was in those files. So he's the only one that has this information. So they sent an NSA and a CIA agent after him, and CIA agent is Adam Baldwin from Firefly, Serenity, and Buffy, or Angel, I should say, who he played Jane in Firefly, and I can't pronounce the NSA agent her name, but he ends up, there's a will they won't they romance with the NSA agent and Chuck, and it's one of those things where like it's the everyday nerd gets to be the super spy.
Yeah,
because,
super agent.
Yeah, because later on he finds out there's an upgrade to the files that are in his head, and he can just flash and learn any martial art whatsoever. And he can learn, he knows how to tumble, gymnastics, all this stuff, just because he needs it in that situation. He can flash and learn it. And so they actually put him in the field as an agent later on. And so it's one of those things where I was like, oh, this is so great. And it just turned out to be a really good show, a really fun show. It's funny. It's one of those, it's the action in it isn't super like, bloody, gory, whatever. But it's just enough to keep you interested. And his best friend that works with him in the Buy More, and they've been best friends since they were little kids, Morgan Grimes, played by Joshua Gomez, who is also in love with Chuck's sister, Ellie, played by Sarah Lancaster. Morgan reminds me of Adam Runyon. Just the way he looks. I mean, if you look at a picture of Morgan, I'll send you all a picture of Morgan Grimes, and you all can compare it to Adam and how he looks. But Adam worked at Best Buy.
Oh, grimy.
Adam worked at Best Buy, and so they had almost exactly the same shirt and everything. So it was. It's just one of those shows that I absolutely loved and can quote and can go back to at any time and just put it on if I'm bored and not have anything to worry about. So I think with that, I think we had a good show, guys.
It's a good show. It's a very good show.
Good show.
Good.
So I appreciate you guys, and unfortunately, sadly, we lost Adam. And he said, just text me. He said his phone just came back on. He was actually calling in because I don't know why he was calling in. Something to do with his computer. But so I'll just have to text him back and say, hey, the show's over. But
we're glad you got to listen to us talk, though, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's with all this entertainment out there, we've laid out 3 amazing shows for you: Silicon Valley, Runaways, and Superstore. We talked about others, all the Marvel shows, all the DC shows, which are worlds better than the movies. DC.
Yep.
The DC cinematic is not very good, but you can't go wrong with DC television shows, the Arrowverse as they call them, which is Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow, and soon Black Lightning.
Just for the record, like if you you can download the CW app for free, and you can watch whatever you want on there. Like
Whatever
you don't have to log in for anything. Yeah, like the Earth Crisis on Earth X thing that just happened. Like that's not under the respective shows labels on the CW app. It's actually pretty cool because all you have to do is search for Crisis on Earth X, and it flows straight up. Like if you start the first one, it just goes right on, and it's basically a 2-hour movie.
Nice.
It's so good.
So you've got all that. You've got Riverdale. You've got all these shows that we mentioned. So just go out there if you're bored and you need something because it's winter. It's going to be snowing. You're going to need some entertainment. Pick one and enjoy. So with that, I'm going to say for Adam Runyon, who's not here, wait a minute. No, I'm not going to do that yet because I'm going to say, hey, Josh, do you have anything to plug? You can find him at Red Parallax on Twitter. He has some really funny tweets.
Yeah, that's as far as it usually goes with general content and whatever episodes I happen to hop on here and with Jesse. Yeah, so
and Jesse, plug away, my friend.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, go give that Rattlich and Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like. That is the network that my show, Source Material, is a part of. Just like Josh had said, Ronnie Adams, Josh Calandros, they've all been part of it. As a matter of fact, Adam Runyon made an appearance one time, if I remember correctly, when we did a call-in show. So we have over 140 episodes in the tank. So you can go back into the archives, go to blogtalkradio.com, search the archives. There's probably a story in there that you may be interested in that's happened in the comic book universe. Just like I said, we talked about Runaways. Recently, what was our recent episode on here, Ronnie? Was it the Punisher episode that dropped where we got to talk about Manucci? Manucci, the Russian. And oh my goodness, that was probably one of the most fun episodes.
Josh, I'm not kidding. When Mark Radulich made a heck of a argument for Manucci being the best villain in the Marvel universe.
Yep.
Yeah, buddy. Because you will not find another villain who has been dismembered, literally, no arms or legs, wears a wig to cover the hideous bear scars that she has on her scalp. She launches herself out of a burning building, a burning house, out of the top, second story of a burning home, to chew on the Punisher's ankles because she hates him so much.
Garth Ennis. Have you ever read any Garth Ennis?
Well, it's funny because I was just getting ready to say
it sounds like Garth Ennis.
No, I was getting ready to say that sounds very Preacher.
Yeah, buddy.
Yep.
That is right.
I did and didn't say that at the same time.
You completely said that.
Well, honestly, that sounds. I read every issue of Preacher. That sounds very Preacher.
This is Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon coming over to the Marvel Universe and doing Punisher. So it was tremendous. A lot of fun to talk about. Probably one of the most funny episodes that I've had the chance to do.
Oh, so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. But yeah, we're on Stitcher, iTunes, and TuneIn Radio, all sorts of great apps where you can get podcasts. Ronnie Adams?
You can find the Screaming Boy podcast on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. Our last episode, what did we do, Jesse? I forget.
We reached back into a bunch of lost episodes, but the most recent one.
I thought you were talking about the show Lost.
No, not Lost. I'm talking about the Lost episodes. You said we had we released some Screaming Boy episodes from
so
here in my car.
Yeah,
approximately 6 months ago.
Ooh, shut up. But we did another one. I thought you released on the Radulich Broadcasting Network.
I'm sure there was. I'll have to take a look. Can you remember what?
It's sad that I can't even remember.
I was gonna say. Well, wait a second now.
Yeah. So what is wrong with me right now?
Podcasting.
I will edit this out. The convention, comic convention update.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so we did where Jesse talked about River City Comic Con, and I talked about Greensboro, Fayetteville, and Raleigh. No, Durham Comic Cons, and we actually had a good time. We had some good discussion on that. I know I've been to River City, and I want to go back. Greensboro was amazing. Fayetteville was amazing. Durham was a dumpster fire at some points, but it was still had a lot of fun at the Bull City, North Carolina Comic Con. But so we had a good time. Go back and listen to that. It's on YouTube. It should be on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn. We'll have to add it to the Radio Legend Broadcasting Network as well if it's not on there. Social media, you can find us on Twitter at Screaming Boy PR, Instagram, where you can find pictures from said cons, which is Screaming Boy Podcast. Just go on Facebook and you just look up Screaming Boy Podcast. You'll find us and give us a like. Go on one of these sources of media and subscribe to us. Give us 5 stars because we yearn for your acceptance and and we beg for it. But
what happened? I think Ronnie dropped off and
Ronnie
just left. This is the best ending. This is the best end.
Where'd he go?
I don't know.
He wasn't muted or anything.
Maybe his battery dropped off.
Let me send him a message here real quick. Where are you, sir?
It can all be edited.
Right at the end.
Yeah, dude. He probably had another 10 seconds in him.
Thought I did something. I was like, oh crap! I dropped myself out of there.
I did too. I stopped.
I closed out.
I was like, I'm just listening, so maybe.
Yes, we're still live.
Oh, sweet. They've all dropped. They're done. Everybody's
There's no listeners.
I do recommend that you watch that Crisis on Earth X thing.
Dude, I'm all about it. I've got
if you're not caught up on all 4 shows, it's totally okay. I'm caught up on 2 and not on the other 2, and it was all very seamless and there was no questions. It's really
sweet.
solid.
Yeah, that's kind of like the last one they did with the invasion. I don't watch Arrow, and I don't know. I'm
like 2.5 or 3 seasons back on Arrow. Like I not because I don't like it. It's just because I don't know, dude. Like
there's a lot there to catch up on.
There is, and Flash and Supergirl are so good. I'm not going to stop watching them. I just don't know that I have time to regularly watch 4 shows worth every single week.
Dude. I'm right there with you. Like I don't watch Arrow. I don't watch Supergirl. But the invasion one, I was able to kind of, aside from the fact, the first episode was all completely Supergirl, and then the Flash ended up showing up right at the end.
Yeah.
This one,
each episode is heavier on the respective show that the episode's on, right? So,
yeah.
I think the last episode's a Legends of Tomorrow episode, and it's actually a pretty important episode for some
that
characters,
series,
but and the future of it. But you don't have to have watched anything before. There's a couple characters that I was like, "Who's that?" Like I've not seen Mr. Terrific.
Yeah,
but he's a regular recurring in Arrow, and he is flawless. And as I've talked about before, I love the Justice Society.
Oh yeah,
dude. He's perfect. His outfit is. Yeah, it even says fair play on his sleeves. It's so good.
When you were talking about catching up,
what is happening?
I don't know. We just started talking about other stuff because you stopped.
Yeah.
You know what? Not to interrupt you all, but for Adam Runyon, for Jesse Starcher, for Josh Calandros, I'm Ronnie Adams, and I'm tired, and I hate my internet.
And there's some editing to be done.
Yes, sir.
For Adam Runyon, for Jesse Starcher, for Josh Glenders, I'm Ronnie Adams. Y'all take it easy. We're out.
Duval.
Duval.